Money's as cheap as it's been in years because of interest rates. That's the cost of borrowing. They've sunk to historic lows.
Hey, everybody's offering me money, and I don't want it. So I'm turning down millions of dollars and no interest. No interest.
Each new penny now costs roughly 1.7 cents to make, rendering each a loss from the start.
Go to school, get a job, work hard, pay your taxes, save money, get out of debt, buy a house, and invest in the stock market. Everybody who follows that program has been brainwashed.
What is the value of currency? Currency, or moreover money, plays a pivotal role in society. Money is intertwined with all aspects of our lives, with the food we eat, the clothes we wear, and the gifts we receive. From the way we perceive success to the way we give to others, money is involved in some way or another in our lives. We put so much importance into money, with hundreds of books, studies, and lectures made just to help people get more of it. And all this just for a piece of paper? How in the world did we get here?
The origins of money can be derived from the ancient form of bartering. Bartering is credited as the first form of trading goods. It has existed for as long as society. Until 3,000 years ago, bartering was the main source of getting outside resources and materials. But how does bartering work? If you don't know already, bartering is a system of trading where you trade something you have for something you want. For example,
hey, I want those glasses. If you give them to me, I'll give you this burger.
Exactly. But bartering had its major flaw, coincidence of wants. If somebody didn't want what you had, you couldn't trade with that person. So instead, people had to trade with multiple people just to trade with one person. For example,
hey, I want those glasses. In exchange, I'll give you this burger.
what if I don't want this burger? I want a cup of milkshake.
Okay then, I'll have to trade this burger to the tailor, so the tailor can give me some clothes, and then those clothes I can give to the butcher, and the butcher will give me a piece of meat, which I can give to the chef, and then the chef will make me a milkshake, which I can give to you. All for those glasses? Wow, that's a lot of work. Just take the burger.
You have to trade with multiple people to get the stuff you want. This process was widely inefficient, causing innovation to occur. Soon the trading of easily traded commodities began.
This new innovation was the bartering of easily traded goods. People would use salt, animal hides, tools, or livestock as a medium of exchange, since they were the things that everyone needed. It wasn't really currency, because the value of these goods was not fixed, but it worked to somewhat resolve the coincidence of wants. This improved form of bartering, although good, was still not good enough, and representative currency soon began to appear. What is representative currency? Let's take a look.
In 3000 BC, Mesopotamian societies developed a system of money called shekels. Shekels were heavy coins that were worth their weight in barley and were used throughout the kingdom. Farmers who didn't yet have their harvest could trade a shekel worth of barley for the things they needed before they actually got the barley. This system was like an advanced form of bartering where half of the goods were traded at a later date. On the other side of the world, in China, a different kind of system evolved. For a while, tools had been used as a common medium of exchange since they never expired and people always needed them. So in 1100 BC, people began casting small bronze replicas of tools like knives and spades that represented the value of an actual tool. Philosophically, this was a pretty advanced system of currency since the actual money traded had minimal value. As time went on, about a millennia later, many people felt that these tools were hard to carry, so eventually these tiny bronze replicas transitioned into bronze coins. In 600 BC, Lydia became the first known country to have a minted currency. Each coin was made of electrum and had the king's head stamped on one side and a symbol like snake or owl denoting the value of the coin on the other. The Lydian system of currency, with coins made of precious metals with different fixed values, quickly spread across the known world. Over all these thousands of years, across different countries, the main principle of money remained the same. All money was made of somewhat precious metals, and a currency was very directly tied to a certain commodity. It seems pretty easy to trust the value of precious metal coins, but it's hard to imagine how a piece of paper could act the same. To figure out how we decided to value paper as same as gold, we have to look back at China, this time during the Tang Dynasty.
With growing populations and increasingly rich people, some countries were struggling to get enough precious metals to keep up with the demand for coins. As well, since metal currency is heavy, making large deals became difficult. To solve these problems, China made a revolutionary change. For a while, the rich could store their money in the government vault to keep it safe, and the government would give them redeemable slips of paper, which indicated how many coins you had in the royal vault. The change occurred when people began trading these papers amongst each other, since whoever had the receipt could redeem the coins. The government soon caught on and just started using these paper slips to pay for things. This meant that there were more gold coins worth of paper than gold coins in the vault. But so long as everyone didn't cash them in at the same time, the system worked fine. Soon, merchants began just giving these government slips to each other, rather than cashing them in, making the first documented case of paper money.
In England, a different system was born, where private banks essentially did the same thing as the Chinese government. Up until the 1600s, wealthy people would often store their money in royal mint, which likely would have led to the evolution of a system much like China, if it weren't for one key difference: Charles I. Whenever Charles I was in debt, he just took all the monies from mint because he could, and he left merchants and businessmen IOU notes.
Hey man, I kind of owe a guy who owes a guy. I'm a little short on money, so I just took all the money from the mint to pay him back. You know how it is. Well, I owe you.
That's exactly what it is. This made people not want to store their money in mint anymore because at any time it could be taken away. So goldsmiths started renting out space in their massive vaults for merchants to put their money in. Soon these goldsmiths started giving merchants small amounts of interest for the right to invest the stored money and make a profit, leading to the origin of modern interest. Likely influenced by stories of paper money from China, traders in Italy evolved a third paper money system. Since merchant families were almost always in conflict, carrying large amount of money over long distances was unsafe. So merchants started using signed IOU notes, or notes of exchange, to buy things when they traveled. The note could then be exchanged at a nearby bank branch by the seller, and the merchant would pay the bank branch in his hometown. That way, the money itself never needed to travel. Sometimes, the seller would not cash in the bill to the bank, and would instead trade it to someone else. The concept of notes having value spread, and soon, bank would just sell people banknotes in exchange for their money. You would just buy $100 notes from the bank, and buy goods with that note. And at the end of the day, businesses could cash in all the notes they had been paid with for money at the bank, which they could conveniently deposit in their accounts.
These three systems were the start of paper money. Since people started not really cashing in their notes, and instead just trading them around, bankers had a large sum of money in their vaults that was largely unused. So they began loaning out bills to people who needed it, with an interest rate which made a profit. This meant that the bank was lending money that was only backed in theory, but so long as not everyone cashed in at the same time, no one was in trouble.
Up until this point in history, money was always backed by something. In Mesopotamia, shekels were backed by barley. In Lydia, the value of money came from the electrum they were made of, and paper money was equivalent to the gold coins it represented. Unfortunately, this system had one crucial flaw that impeded economic growth. You could only have as much money as you have gold. Yes, this could be flouted a little, as banks lent more than they had, but this could only go as far without people becoming concerned. Ultimately, the bank was obliged to cash out your money in gold at any time. With the discovery of the Americas, this system could be further sustained, since exploration brought a rush of gold into Europe, but eventually things had to change. How do you solve such a problem that stemmed from a simple lack of resources? By volume, there are less than 4 Olympic swimming pools worth of gold in the whole world, and being an element where there's no realistic way to make more. Well, in 1971, President Nixon figured it out. For a long time, philosophers had realized that gold itself had no inherent value. You cannot eat it, you cannot build a house out of it, and it doesn't really fulfill any necessary part of life. They figured out that we only value it because it's rare, and because everyone else does. Nixon realized that people in the day now trusted paper money in the same way, so he basically declared that money could no longer be exchanged for gold, and that was that. Since people were so used to money carrying value, they still valued it, even though it was now just a marked up piece of paper. Nowadays, money had no solid value, but it's valuable because we all agree it is. We're willing to get a piece of paper for our services because we know that others will accept that same paper in payment for their things. In summary, the dollar is valuable because we all agree it is. Since money is now no longer tied to any specific commodity, recently a new form of currency has emerged called cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency cuts out physical items completely and relies solely on the transfer of digital assets called crypto tokens. Bitcoin is the strongest form of this cryptocurrency, and it started in January 2009. Whether or not cryptocurrency is the future of money or just a failed effort, it's something only time will tell. Now you're probably wondering what happened when these systems interact. Like, if a merchant from China and supplier in Italy are making a deal, how would they determine whose money is worth more? Or how come a Chinese yuan is worth less than an American dollar? There are two main ways the exchange rate is determined. The first has the fixed exchange rate, where one government pegs their money into another country and does everything they can to keep that way. China is a prime example of this, where the Chinese government essentially said that $1 is equal to about 6.5 yuan and then try to keep it that way. The other system for determining the currency exchange rate is called floating exchange rate. This is tied to supply and demand on the global market. The USA uses this system.
Currency, which is so intertwined in every aspect of our lives, has existed in many forms throughout the millennia, but is ultimately a way to trade goods with people who don't yet have their end of the trade. Basically, currency is an IOU, or a way to keep a track of debt. Throughout history, humanity has struggled to prove this debt, to secure it, and to transfer it across borders. But in the end, whether that debt is recorded in the form of miniature tools, golden coins, piece of paper, or ones and zeros in a computer, money is all the same. A way of proving that you are owed.